Dear students, my name is Naushi Nizami, and in today's session we are going to focus our topic on poverty and inequality. We will try to see and discuss what is poverty, how it is defined, how World Bank defines the poverty line, how poverty can be measured, and what is the current state of poverty in India and the world. And we also will see that why inequality is an important issue of concern and what can be the impact of inequality on an economy. Also, we will look at the relationship between inequality and growth. Let's start our discussion with measurement of absolute poverty and also by defining absolute poverty. So, when there is a situation where sections of the population or the population are able to maintain only minimum levels of living, so only subsistence level of living, then you can consider that population to be below or on the poverty line. So basically you can think that absolute poverty is a situation where households are able to barely meet their needs, the basic needs of life, such as water, food, clothing, shelter, access to clean water, medical facilities, health facilities, etc. So, over a period of time, poverty line has been set on the basis of consumption expenditure as well as nutritional expenditure. So, when poverty line is set as per nutritional expenditure, nutritional requirements, it basically implies that a, a particular calorie requirement is set, and if people are able to consume more than that given level of calories, they are not considered as poor. However, if a person is not able to consume even the set calorie intake limit, then he is considered to be below the poverty line. In India, in the case of urban areas, 2400 calories were set as the poverty line for people living in the rural areas, and 2100 calories were set as a limit for poverty line for people living in urban areas. So anyone who is not able to consume even 2400 calories in rural areas was said to be poor. Now, consumption expenditure can be another criteria of poverty line, and in order to arrive at the right value, the right amount of consumption expenditure, it's just seen that how much amount of money is needed to buy food which has 2400 calories, and accordingly consumption expenditure poverty line is set. Absolute poverty can be measured using two methods, and there are several other methods also. Head count, which basically just counts the number of poor in a country. Another method can be head count index, wherein head count divided by total population. So total number of poor divided by total population, that will give you a ratio that will give you an idea about the relative poverty in a country. So both of these methods are quite popular, head count and head count index. As per the World Bank and other United Nations agencies, the current standard poverty measure which has been set is $1.90 per day. So if someone is able to spend $1.90 per day on the basic needs of life and above it, he is not considered to be poor. But if someone does not have even this much amount per day for spending on consumption, then he is considered to be below the poverty line. Human Poverty Index is another important measurement method which is used by United Nations Development Program, and it measures poverty as three key deprivations. So poverty, a person is said to be in poverty, a person is said to be poor if he is deprived in terms of survival, knowledge and economic provisions. So using the data from all these three parameters, Human Poverty Index is calculated. If we convert $1.90, which is a poverty line set by World Bank and UN agencies, in Indian rupees, so currently the Exchange rate of Indian rupees and US dollar is around 75.86 rupees. So $1 is equal to 75.86 rupees. When you multiply it with $1.90, one gets 144 rupees. So nearly in today's times, if someone is not able to spend and is not having even 144 rupees per day, you can consider them to be below the poverty line. Let's go into detail about the criterions of Human Poverty Index, the three criterions which we discussed in the earlier slide. So the three criterions, the first one is survival. So survival basically implies that what is the likelihood of surviving, what is the likelihood of surviving at a relatively early age, or what is the likelihood of death at a relatively early age, and the probability of not surviving to age 40 as per Human Poverty Index 1 and age 60 as per Human Poverty Index 2. So HP1 and HP2 are the two variants of Human Poverty Index. HP1 is for developing countries and underdeveloped countries, while HP12 is for developed countries. So in developing countries, if someone is not able to survive even up to the age of 40, that data is taken and it's considered to be a part of calculation. So here it's not that the death data is taken, but the data of life expectancy is taken. So if there is some country where life expectancy is less than 40 years and the country is an underdeveloped country or developing country, then in that country you will find that poverty would be more. So if life expectancy is 60 or above 60 in developed countries, then they are not falling in the poverty line. But this is just one of the parameters of Human Poverty Index. The other parameter is knowledge, which basically measures deprivation from the world of reading and communication and is measured by percentage of adults who are illiterate. So you combine the data of life expectancy with the data of illiteracy, and these two become the two indicators of Human Poverty Index, along with the third indicator, which is measuring overall economic provisioning. So in decent standard of living, basically the deprivation in terms of income is measured, and when the data of income is combined with the data of illiteracy and life expectancy, together these three criterions are used to measure Human Poverty Index. One can easily get data of Human Poverty Index, its interpretation and its comparison across the world on internet. It's calculated by UNDP, United Nations Development Programs. You can always access the report, Human Poverty Index report, as well as it's also mentioned in Human Development Reports. So the data is easily available in public domain. I also thought of discussing with you another important criteria of poverty, which is known as multidimensional poverty. So multidimensional poverty basically defines poverty on several dimensions, as you can see on this slide also. So the criterions are many. So if we look just at the health criterion, so poverty is measured in terms of deprivation. Deprivation if living in the household where in terms of nutrition an adult under 70 years of age or a child is undernourished. So this looks at the data of malnourished persons as well as children. Then child mortality, any child under the age of 18 years has died in the 5 years preceding the survey. This is in terms of child mortality. Education, if no household member aged 10 years or older has completed 6 years of schooling, again they are deprived in terms of years of schooling. If any school age child is not attending school up to the age at which he or she would complete class 8, then that is a deprivation in terms of school attendance. Then there are several parameters for standard of living. So if there is a household which continues to cook with dung, wood, charcoal or coal, it basically means they are deprived from the cleaner fuels. So this is a deprivation on cooking fuels. If there is a household where sanitation facility is not improved as per the Sustainable Development Goals guidelines, or it is improved but shared with other households, so it's like a common toilet in a society rather than having one toilet per house, so that implies deprivation in terms of sanitation. If household does not have access to improved drinking water as per the Sustainable Development goals guidelines or safe drinking water is at least a 30-minute walk from home and a round trip, that implies that the household is deprived from safe drinking water. This again is indicating another dimension of poverty. Similarly, a household which has no electricity, a household where the house material for at least one roof, wall, and floor are inadequate, or the floor is of natural materials and not man-made materials, that means it's not very durable. And assets, the household does not own more than one of these assets: radio, TV, telephone, computer, animal cart, refrigerator, motorbike, bicycle, and even do not have a car or truck. So if a household is not having assets, then that also uh, classifies as one of the dimensions of poverty. And health, education, and standard of living, they are defining poverty in terms of nearly 10 dimensions. That's why this is known as multidimensional poverty. So here it's a very broad definition of poverty, because in reality poverty is not limited to only food, water, and sanitation and clothing. Let's see some other definitions, and let's discuss that why is inequality bad. So extreme inequality is not good for the society, because it will lead to economic inefficiency and curtails growth. So if income inequality is high, that means more national income is going in the hands of few people, and majority of the population are poor, they are having less income, that means that economic inefficiency is very less in such countries. So the fruits of growth are not reaching everyone, and it basically implies that there may be some industries which have a good capital structure, while there are some industries where capital may be inadequate. So inequality will show up in different dimensions. It will show up in terms of jobs, it will show up in terms of opportunities, in terms of consumption expenditures. So extreme inequality basically represents economic inefficiency, because if a country continues to have high income inequality, the country will face difficulty in achieving the optimum level of efficiency. Extreme inequality also undermines social stability and solidarity. So in any society where there is a huge gap between the rich and the poor, you will not find that the social environment is healthy. So you will see more number of protests, or you will see more number of crimes. Similarly, extreme inequality is viewed as unfair. So it is unfair because any person doesn't decide his chance, does not define his luck. So a person who is born in a poor household, they remain deprived from various you can say from various facilities and provisions of the government, or you can say the basic needs of life. So it's considered to be unfair. There's a gap between the rich and the poor, and um, if the poorer households are not having opportunities to improve their current situations, then they remain poor in various dimensions of life, as we saw in the previous slide. We are also now moving to another important relationship between economic growth and income inequality. So this is a very important association given by Simon Kuznets. This is known as Simon Kuznets inverted U hypothesis, and basically Simon Kuznets in his famous hypothesis established an inverse relation between income inequality and economic growth. So he measured income inequality using Gini coefficient, and economic growth was measured in terms of GDP growth rate, and they tried to see that what is the association between GDP growth rate and Gini coefficient. The hypothesis states that in the early stages of growth, distribution of income will tend to worsen, whereas in the later stages it will improve. What it implies is that initially when a country starts experiencing high GDP growth, income inequality will also rise. However, after a certain period of time, when GDP has risen to a good level, income inequality will start reducing. Let's check this with the help of the diagram which was given by Kuznets. It's a very interesting diagram. I'll again point out what is on y-axis Gini coefficient, and on x-axis you have GNP, gross national product per capita. So per capita national income, you can take it like that. So the actual data was taken from Latin American countries, and you can see that there's a inverted U-shaped curve that is visible here. So initially when the growth rate is low, income inequality is also low. So the values which are closer to 0 show less income inequality, and values closer to 1 show high income inequality. So initially when the GDP growth rate is between 0 to 1 and 0 to 2, relatively Gini coefficient is less. However, as the GNP per capita rises to 3%, basically you can see that Gini coefficient also rises, say from 0.39 to 0.47 and 0.49, and then as the GNP growth rate keeps on rising, it continues to rise. It's rising, say it reached between 5 to 6% growth rate. Then with a passage of time, income inequality also starts falling. So it starts falling from 4.9, 0.49 to 0.39. So you see a reduction by 10 points, nearly 10 points, as the GNP per capita has increased to a fairly high level. So this was an association which was established by Kuznets curve, and these are just points. These points are just depicting the data points, and by joining more or less all the points, this inverted U-shaped curve has occurred. So Simon Kuznets curve gives an idea about the inverse relationship between economic growth rate and income inequality, and basically it hints that as a country moves from the stage of least development to developing and then to developed country, it will experience changes in the levels of income inequality. Let's see some more data of the poverty situation across the world. So this data is taken from World Bank in 2000. It's a little older data, however it's interesting data because it shows that how and where the developing world's poor live. So as per the $1 per day poverty line, which is now $1.90, you can see that in South Asia 43.5% of the poor people were living, and then in East Asia and Pacific 23.2% of the poor were living. Sub-Saharan Africa had also a high percentage, 24.3% of the poor living in this region, and the least poor were in Middle East and North Africa, 0.5%. If we compare this data with the next slide, this is showing poverty in the developing world is shifting towards South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. So this data is of 1987 and this is of 1998. You can see that in South Asia in 1987, 40% of the poor were living, while the proportion of poor increased from 40% to 43.5% in 1998. Similarly, in East Asia Pacific, the proportion of poor has reduced from 35.3% to 23.2%, and in Sub-Saharan Africa the proportion of poor people has actually increased from 18.4% to 24.3%. So poverty has been increasing over a period of time from 1987 to 1998. This is the data visible, and this is the latest data of 2015. So half of the world's poor live in just 5 countries. Which are those 5 countries? You see that Sub-Saharan Africa, they have 33.25% of the poor people. India has 23.88% of the world's poor people. Then Nigeria has 11.76%. and Congo has 7.49%, Ethiopia has 3.67% alone as a country, South Asia has 2.21%, other countries in South Asia, and East Asia Pacific has 6.42%. So this is the distribution of the poor people across the world. and that's how you can compare the situation of poverty in India and across the world. We will be back with some more topics related to this. Till then, all of you take care and have a good time. Stay safe. Thank you.